what are red flags, what are toxic relationships. Partners don't give them that reassurance. They feel that their independence is going away or this person is getting too involved in my life. They would immediately want to withdraw.
Have you ever wondered why some people seem to thrive in relationships while for others it's really important to have their guards up? It's intriguing, don't you think, to see how different people have different ways of forming bonds and how so much of their personality is revealed through these patterns. Hello, you're watching What's on Your Mind, a journey from the mind to the mic, brought to you by the Department of Psychology, NMIMS University, and I'm your host, Anushka Gope. And today, we're diving into a topic that is both incredibly personal and deeply intricate: attachment styles. Ms. Rodrigues is an assistant professor in the Department of Psychology, Jyoti Dalal School of Liberal Arts. She holds a master's in counseling psychology and she teaches family and marital counseling in NMIMS University. She has also worked as a lecturer at Srimati Maniben College of Arts and Commerce. We're so glad to have you with us today, ma'am, and we're looking forward to a really exciting conversation.
So let's begin with the basics. What exactly are attachment styles, and why do you think they're so important in understanding human relationships?
So attachment styles are basically emotional bonds that we form. They are psychological patterns that sort of form right from our childhood, and we continue with various attachment styles. There are 4 main attachment styles, but 3 of them are more common, which is secure, avoidant, and anxious. And there's also the disorganized attachment style. So those attachment styles sort of inform how we, behave in our relationships, what sort of communication we have, how we resolve conflicts, all of that.
So why do you think attachment styles has become such an important topic when we talk about mental health or relationships?
So, see, recently, because of the increase in, awareness, even on social media or just with respect to mental health, there are a lot of conversations happening with respect to mental health and especially healthy relationships. What are red flags? What are toxic relationships? What are healthy relationships? So I think in that context, people have started delving more into how we form healthy relationships, and attachment styles significantly influence those aspects. So I think that's why there's more conversation around it.
Did you know that one of the first theories about why we make relationships or have relationships was Freud's cupboard love theory? Mm-hmm. The original idea was that the baby was attached to the mother who provided food, and from there started the conversation about what brings humans close to each other. So the whole theory is rooted in how we were treated as kids, right? But how does this shape how we handle relationships as adults? Like, what is the connection there?
So what you're saying about, this theory being rooted from childhood, that is true. We do have these experiences in childhood that influences us, but it's not just that. It's, every subsequent life experience we have after that with, our family members, our friendships, our romantic partners. So all these experiences we have as children, as adolescents, as young adults, they all influence our current attachment styles.
Okay, so that brings me to my third question, which is that, do you think these patterns or the attachment style of a person remains consistent throughout life?
No, it can change depending on, like I said, your life experiences. Sometimes people who have secure attachment styles with their parents, because of certain life experiences, maybe with romantic partners or later in life, some traumatic events that occur, they may tend to form insecure attachment styles, or vice versa. Again, that also depends on the situation and context and the relationship you're existing in. For example, I may have a secure attachment style with a romantic partner, but an insecure attachment style with a family member, or vice versa. So it's not always consistent. And research also finds that with age, people sometimes lean more towards secure attachment styles.
So secure attachment style is often the ideal, like we're all aspiring to be there, right? Mm-hmm. So can you give us a picture of how it looks like, what it is?
Right. I know that it is the ideal, but I would also like to say that it's not wrong to have anxious or avoidant attachment styles. But yeah, we would definitely strive for a secure attachment style. And people with these attachment styles would be someone who's very open with their partners or whoever is in this relationship. They'd be very open in terms of their communication. They would have healthy communication. The way they manage their conflict would also be very healthy. Not a lot of criticism or defensiveness, and there would be a balance in maintaining togetherness and their individuality. So there's not a lot of enmeshment between the partners, but there's also not a lot of disengagement.
Okay. So, from what you've said, I've gathered that it is possible to have multiple attachment styles. So, how does that complexity play out in different relationships? Like, what's the driving force there?
So, like I mentioned before, the situation or the person that you're with significantly influences the way you behave with them. So, let's say with a particular friend, I've had some sort of incident that becomes a core memory or a core experience in my life, and my attachment style with my friends can be influenced by it henceforth. Same applies to romantic partners and family. So I might show multiple characteristics of attachment styles. With some people, I may have a secure attachment style because I trust them, I feel comfortable with them, and not so much with others. Additionally, the same person with the same partner might also show characteristics from secure attachment style at once, but some other times they may show other characteristics of an insecure attachment style.
Can you talk about someone who you have personally witnessed exhibiting insecure attachment styles?
Okay. So, sometimes people need constant reassurance. So, let's say, anxious attachment styles. They would constantly call up their partners and try to know where they are, what they're doing, why have they not gotten back to them, itne ghante ho gaye, message kyun nahi kiya hai, all of that. And on the other hand, avoidant attachment styles, when you see, the minute there is, they feel that their independence is going away, or this person is getting too involved in my life, they would immediately want to withdraw from the relationship.
So these people who have anxious attachment styles, what would have led for them to develop such patterns?
So, like we discussed, it starts from childhood. So sometimes parents have very inconsistent ways of behaving with their children. And this may not be always verbal. Sometimes they are non-verbal cues that the parent is not being consistent in the way they nurture and care for the child. So that can sometimes lead to anxious attachment. Or like I said, later in life, they've had certain experiences. Let's say that a romantic partner has cheated on them while they really trusted that partner, or some significant event has occurred that makes them very insecure about their relationships henceforth. So that sort of leads them to develop an anxious attachment style.
So how do you think these attachment styles affect other relationships like friendships or family dynamics? What is the connection there?
I think it will influence every area of your life. Like a person who has an anxious attachment style in general, they might also display that at work or with their friends. They may feel insecure if their friends have not included them in a particular meeting with other friends, or when a project at work is being given to somebody else, something that they worked on. They may not even think of, actual reasons as to why this has happened, but the immediate thought would be, oh, this is being taken away from me.
Let's talk a little more about the other attachment styles. Can you also give us a description of how they look like when manifested in a person?
Right. So when we talk about anxious attachment styles, right, again, because anxious and avoidant are insecure attachment styles, they won't have very healthy communication. Conflict management will be slightly problematic, maybe not as healthy as secure attachment styles. And, like I mentioned, the aspect of balance between togetherness and individuality, that won't be quite right in the insecure attachment style. So, an anxious person will seek out the partner much more. They might be more clingy. They would like to get into enmeshed relationships, very entangled in each other's lives. And they need much more reassurance from their partners and loved ones. Whereas avoidant attachment styles, those people would like to maintain a distance. They get uncomfortable with the idea of intimacy, or this person is being too involved in my life. So the minute that tends to happen, they want to withdraw. So, and the anxious avoidant trap is very well known. Like anxious people would tend to find avoidant partners, and that cycle would tend to continue. That one partner would keep pursuing. They would want to have a very close relationship. They would want to cling to their partner, want constant reassurance, while the avoidant partner constantly wants to withdraw from the intimacy.
So, do you think relationships where there's an anxious and an avoidant, people of those two types, do you think such relationships work, or they can be worked upon or mended?
Yes, definitely they can be worked upon. But what happens is that most people are not aware that they have these attachment styles, and that's where things go wrong. But once people are, aware that this is what causes us to fight in this way, react to intimacy in this way, then they can definitely be worked upon.
I have seen from personal experience that some people, take it a little too far or go on to blame themselves for their patterns. Do you think that's the right thing to do?
Absolutely not. Like personally, I have also seen people blaming their parents.
Right.
Because we also discussed this, that, it's rooted in childhood. And the first people you form your attachment styles with is your primary caregivers, most likely your parents. So people tend to be like, oh, my parent did this and this is why I have these issues, or I am like this today. But that's not really the case. There's no one to blame as such. It's just our life experiences, and it's not one life experience. It's multiple life experiences that add on to the current attachment style we have. So I don't think we should feel guilty for having an insecure attachment style, nor should we blame our parents for it, because there are so many other things that also influence it. I recently started reading this book called Attached, which focuses on attachment styles. It's written by Amir Levine and I think Rachel Heller. So the book talks about how attachment styles work, and the evolutionary perspective behind it, how dependency is okay to a certain level. And the book also has sections where people can identify their own attachment styles for themselves. And it gives a lot of guidelines as to what can you do to improve your attachment style, or rather, move a little bit towards secure attachment styles where you handle conflict well. So
when people do end up identifying these patterns, what do you think is the best way to go about, bringing a change in themselves, or like baby steps? What are those steps?
The first step is self-awareness, right? Because that itself is really difficult to gain when you have no self-awareness as to what attachment style you fall under. So that would be the first step. There are a lot of tools available online. Like I mentioned in the book, that book also has a particular tool where you can identify your attachment styles. And, that helps you realize why you acted in certain ways in certain relationships, or the way you act in your current relationship. From something as basic as how you communicate with your partner. How do you react when your partner is going for a trip or going out of town? How do you react when your partner is not answering your phone call? Any of these basic things. So observation helps you become more self-aware, and there are a lot of tools to assess that as well. So I think that would be the first step. And then gradually you work on whatever aspects you have noticed. Maybe this is not a very healthy communication style, or I tend to become very defensive, or I'm not providing reassurance to my partner when it's needed. And then gradually, start acting in ways that you can work to improve it.
So for all our Gen Z young folks out there, can you pull in some pop culture reference and give a better example of how these things come into play, attachment styles?
So I think for Modern Family, if the audience has watched that, if you look at Cam and Mitchell's relationship, I think Cam is a little more anxious, wants more emotional connection, wants more closeness, while Mitchell tends to avoid that, or sort of withdraw from too much of clinginess, especially in public setting. But overall, when you look at your relationship, I wouldn't say that they both fall completely into insecure attachment styles, because they do have a healthy relationship at the same time. And that proves the point, right? That one person cannot have characteristics of one attachment style completely. There are times when they, tend to show characteristics of insecure attachment style, but also have characteristics of secure attachment styles. So I think that's a great example for people to understand how attachment styles play out in our lives.
So you said that self-awareness is the first step. But then what is the path ahead? What can people do next after that?
Right. So once people are a little self-aware of what they're doing in their current relationships or how their past is affecting them, if they realize that there are certain traumatic events that occur in the past or certain issues that are not yet resolved from the past, maybe trying to work that out in therapy or with the person, if it's a family member or a friend from the past. If you can work that out with them, that is great, and therapy would be even better. But apart from that, in the relationship that you are currently, whichever, romantic or with your family and friends, I think you need to notice how is it that you react to certain situations, what sort of communication you have with them. So emotional intelligence would also play a key role here, right? And being aware of the sort of relationships you have with those people, how are you all communicating, and are you engaging in any sort of criticism or defensiveness? If you have an anxious partner who needs a lot of reassurance, are you providing that reassurance to them? Because what happens is that anxious partners tend to, want to seek reassurance. And most of the times, avoidant partners don't give them that reassurance. And it sort of keeps building up, and then there's a huge fight. But if you do provide them the reassurance at the right time, that gets mitigated right there. That it doesn't build up into a huge fight later. So you need to be aware that you have to provide reassurance time and again to counter those effects.
Don't you think for an avoidant person, it feels like giving a little too much? And even if it's the bare minimum, it feels like they're giving too much or investing too much, and that's difficult to do for them. Right. So how should they bring themselves to that point?
First of all, I think knowing why you feel that way. Why is it too much to do the bare minimum?
Right.
Is it because of certain relationships that have played out earlier, or because of your family life? Because what happens with avoidant people is that they unconsciously don't want to rely on anybody else. They think that I am worthy of all the love and, I am the best.
Right.
But maybe I can't rely or I can't trust other people on anything. And I don't want to get hurt. So they reject people before they can get hurt. But this is not always conscious. They are not always aware that they are avoiding people because of the fear of rejection or getting hurt. So sometimes it's at a very unconscious level. So the first thing is for them to realize where this stems from. And then, of course, you can't flip completely. And someone who's constantly avoiding cannot go to completely providing reassurance and being there the entire time. But it's something very, very basic. Like, let's say I'm an avoidant person. I reveal one small vulnerability to my partner and see how that makes me feel and have a conversation with them. And then sort of, gradually build up on it. So it takes time. It's a long process. You can't flip suddenly.
And where do you think the anxious person comes into this dynamic? Like, in what way should they communicate in order for them to not feel left out, but also support their partner in this journey of bringing themselves to reveal as much?
Right. This other person also needs time to change, right? So do I. So we need to grow together. The relationship dynamic should change together, and we need to work on it together. So the support has to be both ways as well. I can't change by myself, nor can the partner change by themselves. So the support has to go both ways.
Okay, so now this attachment styles has become a very, very important and relevant topic when we talk about relationships and mental health these days, right?
Right.
So do you think that this is a very important lens from which to view these things, or do you think it is gaining a little more importance than it should?
No, no, I think it's a very important lens, and we should know, all of us should know. Unfortunately, I think I realized it while studying psychology, but it's something that everybody should be aware of, not just people studying the subject, right? Because it influences every aspect of our life. Like we discussed, it influences our romantic relationships, our friendships, our workplace relationships. So it is something that we should be aware of. Not just my own attachment style, but also other people around me, especially the significant people in my life, because I can tailor my interactions with them accordingly. We are not always going to be paired up with people. If I'm secure, I will not find always a secure person. Or if I'm anxious, I won't always find an anxious person.
Mm.
So if I'm aware of my own attachment style as well as the other person's, I know how to interact with them. So I think that knowledge is really important.